Welcome to Friends with Fertility, the podcast where we dive deep into the world of fertility, reproductive health, and all the emotional journeys that are in between. I'm your host, Elizabeth King, a fertility expert dedicated to providing you with the knowledge, support, and inspiration you need on your path to parenthood. Whether you're just starting out, exploring your options, or looking for solidarity and advice, we are here for you. Let's embark on this journey together and turn uncertainty into empowerment and make friends with fertility. Let's get started. Hey everyone, welcome back to Friends with Fertility. I'm really looking forward to this conversation today. Welcome, Nader Asalim.
Do I tell them that you've had multiple times to train on how to pronounce my name, or you got it right?
Yeah,
Well
you're
done.
gonna throw me under the bus, Nader.
Well done.
I had the pleasure and the honor of attending one of the events this summer when Gaia was bringing themselves to the US, their US debut. They're traditionally a UK company. And my first question is, what made you decide to take that jump from the UK to the US?
Absolutely, and thanks for having me. And I think if you think about the problem that we're trying to solve, it is a problem fundamentally of that accessibility. Meaning, you look at the people who need treatment, you look at the people who access treatment, and the difference is so huge because it boils down to one thing really, which is cost. And I think the UK and the US have identical problems when you look at the space. 15% of the people that we know today are what you call none of the conventional way of forming a family, so they do need treatment of sort, so they go to alternative treatments. Yet if you look at the percentage of the people that access those treatments, is merely 2%. And the reason is very similar to the UK it is in the US. It's money. And we're a company that is founded on the ethos of making all those treatments more accessible and more affordable. So we track the accessibility issue, whatever they are. And the unfortunate news is there isn't a market as bad than the US when it comes to accessibility of care. So it was a natural decision really to look at this market.
And one of the taglines that I love that you guys talk about often is that fertility should not be a luxury good. And I feel like that really should be shouted from the rooftops because to date, it really is seen as that. And many, many people don't go down the road of building a family because they simply think, I just can't afford that. So it's not even an option. So tell us a little bit about your background and how you even came to bring this to life.
Absolutely. And I think it's exactly my point around, I like that line resonated because it is exactly how it is described, but it's often the truth that we try to evade. When you ask any potential parent to come in and gamble tens of thousands and sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars on an outcome that they can't control, you're really asking someone to come in and play an emotional lottery at prices that they can't afford. And when you look at the average journey of what it costs to have a child, and then you're north of $70,000-$80,000, and then you look at the American household and you look at how many people have access to this money and how many people have it, the average US household has a saving of $5,000. So to come and ask for a saving of $70,000 and $80,000 to have a shot that is not guaranteed at a child, you clearly told the average household that this thing is not for you, and you need to be earning multiples and multiples of that to even have a shot at a family. Which, if you think
And to
about,
your point, real quick, Nader, is most people think when they do go down this road of I'm finally going to save up my money to do IVF, they think that it is guaranteed. They don't understand how the full process works and the fact that it might not happen on round one.
more often than it would happen, unfortunately. And
Correct.
the other flip to that, which I always find it's very interesting from a consumer psychology, is usually when there is there is a very clear price by which you are priced out buying anything that you'd want, because the value that you put on that thing has a ceiling of some sort, right? There is so much you can buy you can put on a Hermes bag, regardless of how much money you have. At a certain point in time, it gets silly. We can argue what that number is, but at that point in time, it's sort of the elasticity of the price, if you want to talk about it in luxury goods items. When it comes to care, save cancer, which people will put what they have and what they don't have because they're fighting a chance to live. There's usually elective care treatments is function, or you spend function of how much you really want to spend on what you're about to do. So when it comes to having a shot at a child, at a family, people are fairly irrational when it comes to the illogical spending, because they would put money that they have and they don't have
Right.
shot at a child. And then the most unfortunate part that comes with it is, to your point, is that not only you're betting the house, so to speak, you're betting the house with no guarantee on the outcome, which exacerbate the problem, because now you're out of the money and you're out of the option to have that child.
Right.
And then if you look at how many people put themselves in precarious financial situations because of how much they thought that they can't afford, and they went down, maybe friends and family, savings, very expensive loans, even crowdfunding. Like, you can go to crowdfunding campaigns now, and you'll find families that are crowdfunding for fertility journeys. And that tells me something, that is, you have a very vulnerable consumer who's clearly very emotional and making choices with regards to how much these things cost and how much they're willing to pay and how much they can afford to pay, or they think that they can afford to pay. And that even put more stress on the family, aside from the emotional side and the physical side. It puts like an enormous financial stress, which causes down the line much more issues that come back in different formats.
Absolutely. And so this is where you guys step in.
We step in. I think we step in and we'd say, we want to be the better way that anyone who is accessing the current services today, or we want to be the better option, the better value for money. I want you to come and say, there's a lot of things that you need to worry about this. Maybe I take away some of that worry. Maybe I take a little bit of the planning, a little bit of the hand holding, a little bit of the better information that you need in order to make better decisions. And the cherry on top is going to come by me underwriting the outcome in such a way that I'm not going to send you a bill if you don't have the baby that you'd wanted. And it is the totality of the experience. We're here to make sure that this is the one stop shop for your journey. And we're going to do everything that we can, save delivering that baby, so that all these other stresses are muted, so that you focus on what matters.
I am actually getting goosebumps hearing this conversation. And this is not new news to me because, like I said, I have been part of following them for quite a bit of time now. But what a beautiful opportunity to step into, as I would claim, a somewhat spiritual experience for these people, that they are thriving and really deeming to try to find some divine connection to the family, right? And like you said, all this other noise comes into play in this need or want or desire that they're after, and you guys are here to, like you say, mute all that outside noise. I think some of it seems too good to be true, right? And when so many people have either contemplated if they go down this road or not and whatnot, why does it sound so good to be true? And how can you help us to learn a little bit more for those that are listening now? Again, I was there and I heard you speak, and I saw physical people who have gone through the program with their babies there, to know that this is not, pie in the sky. This could be possible for you. So tell our listeners a little bit about that, because I know a lot of them are thinking, yeah, yeah, right, Nader. This,
Because what you just said is probably the most common phrase that we used to get early days, which is, "This is too good to be too good to be true." And then if you speak to the original members who were at the New York launch party, the first reaction when they saw an ad on Instagram is that this is a scam, right? It's too good to be true.
right,
That it needed a little bit of diligence on their side, finding out, getting in touch to find out that this is a real company with real people that are delivering results.
right,
And it is such a high quality problem when you are at the forefront of a product or a service and the first people's reaction tell you that this is good to be true. It is a very high quality problem. And but it is a problem nonetheless. And I don't think, philosophically, I don't think we're doing something that is so fundamentally different than everything that's happened, and that's why this is deemed to be too good to be true. I think we're just doing something in a space that no one did anything. And then sometimes when you come and you fill a void, people are not used to that space, because then the space is now occupied by someone what before that. And if you think about the products and the experiences that you interact with and they're part of your daily life right now, you often find yourself asking yourself a question like, what did we do before X? Right? Because it
right,
becomes norm. And as a team, we always say our North Star is when people go through fertility journeys and they wonder, what did we do before Gaia?
right,
That is ultimately the North Star, because this illustrates the space that we want to occupy, right? Which is, there's a lot of people who are doing excellent care on the clinic side, and those we partner with the best of them in order to deliver the best care. There is a lot of people that are paying for care, including the employer, including the health plans, including some form of insurance. Yet somewhere in the middle, we forgot that there's a human being that's going through that experience, and that human being is the ultimate user of that journey, and disproportionately on the woman, because it also it is one of the few things in life that doesn't matter who is the reason. The woman is the person that goes through the process anyway, regardless of,
Correct.
right. So she ends up being the user. She ends up being labeled as infertile. She ends up being labeled as all these labels, or even a patient. While there's actually nothing wrong with her. And then we took a decision, is we'd say, before we become too good to be true, we just want to fill the space and command it and treat people with dignity and respect, so that when people come and wonder why do we treat them so well, it's not that obvious in the beginning, because they haven't been used to having an advocate on their side. Because
Right.
the process is often decided either from a provider perspective or from a payer perspective, but no one figured out that, oh, hold on a second, there's actually a patient, a human being that goes through this experience, and it's pretty brutal and pretty horrible. How about we build it with a little bit more dignity and respect in order to build that? So that's a fundamental tenet of what we built and how we build it. The second part is, you show up and you're buying something on a unit, and someone else shows up and say, I don't want you to pay a penny until you walk away with the outcome that you'd want. It is a bit of a shock to the system, because the system is not used to this payment model, and it is, and you're doing something new that even when I started and we were talking about this idea as conceptually, without any people going through it, without hundreds of babies delivered, it was a pie in the sky, and with a lot of people laughed it off and said, "This is crazy. No one will buy this, and more importantly, not a single person will move to this model from a payer perspective." So you're powered by the stories that you've heard firsthand. You understand that for a lot of families, you are the difference maker. For a lot of families, you're the reason they have a child or not. For a lot of families, you are their only hope. And I hope that we get to a place where, which is what we're trying to do now, we want to open up that market. We want to give people who are today shut out of that market. We want not to improve it for the people that are just going through the treatment. We also want to invite people that without Gaia would have not had any other option. And I think this is the bigger opportunity. While we built with the same ethos of respect, consumer centricity, and ruthless focus on the people that we serve.
Again, I keep going back to what a beautiful experience. Because for myself, when I went through it, I knew I didn't have fertility coverage already. So it wasn't even an option to try to call my insurance company. For a lot of my clients and patients that do have it, they spend hours on the phone trying to negotiate with their insurance company about why they should be having this covered. And even that conversation is exhausting, to either maybe yes or maybe not, they're going to cover certain aspects of what they need. So along the road, they are so used to being disappointed, whether it's from the information they get from the doctor, the information they get from the insurance provider, et cetera, that this experience with you guys seems to be just letting go of that fundamental stress that comes along with it. And when you let go of that fundamental stress, your nervous system regulates. And this goes back to my whole thing about the mind, body, spirit on this journey of, okay, if we can have some company to help you tone down that noise and your nervous system can regulate, because you don't have to worry about X, Y, and Z for the time being. Let's just focus on, one thing at a time. Your chances of success, I imagine, are so much greater. I know that Harvard did a study a while back on the success of being 55% more likely if you're doing cognitive behavior work. Well, part of that is if I don't have to worry about all these other things that I normally do, my relationship isn't bad because we're not arguing about finances or how many rounds we have to do, you know, et cetera, et cetera. I don't feel bad about myself because I don't feel like I'm broken, because I understand there's a community also that's going through the same thing. Everything and everybody rises to the top with success in this situation, which is amazing.
And couldn't agree more. And I think the less empirical evidence to any Harvard study that says, I don't know what percentage of people will improve their chances with cognitive behavioral therapy. Like the stories that you hear of the people that tried, and the minute they stopped, they got pregnant, is probably the best proof of like how much stress plays a blocker role in any of those treatments that will enable you to have a better treatment for the better outcome, for the lack of better word. And the second thing, which you mentioned early, which coming to the US, we realized that problem because we didn't have it, is most people are just so confused about what they're covered and they're not covered for, to the extent that it's
Correct.
such a big problem that we just launched a service. I think it went literally 10 days ago, where we would tell people, we'll do insurance navigation on your behalf.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
And then we will have people with your authorization calling your health plan in order to figure out what are you eligible for and how can you use that money to fund a plan vis-a-vis the Gaia. So we use some of that money to funnel into us, but just we will tell you what you're eligible for, so you don't have to go through this maze of documentation that are ungodly, that are not designed for human consumption. And I don't know who decided that that's a great idea, that we're going to give you a 160 PDF document for you to go figure out authorization code and cross validate them with what you're eligible for and what you're not, and spend endless nights. And that, whether you like it or not, that stress builds up in the back of your head. And then you even haven't started treatment.
Right.
And you compound it with the bills, and you compound it with the physical component of the stress and the hormonal imbalance. And then you compound it with the uncertainty and the unknown. And this is objectively like recipe. I always joke that if a bunch of smart people got together and around the table and said, might we design the worst healthcare experience in the world? I think they'll come up with something very close to how fertility care is done.
Couldn't agree more. Although I feel like there's some big movers now that are kind of stepping in, and it's not going away, right? This industry is we're at the ground level of how this is going to look and the evolution of it, with people continuing to struggle with this and being more open and normalizing fertility as a thing. So, what is your personal story? Because I know that you are personally tied to this, which I think also makes your why important for the audience to understand, because you and your family have also gone through this situation.
Yeah, at the risk of overblowing my own story and sort of like it's a very common story to all those people who went down that path. I had almost fell into Gaia by accident of my own journey. And the bottom line of that story is it took 3 years of trying, five failed transfers, $70,000 of out of pocket, three clinics in two countries for my boy to show up. And he's now 4, and it's wonderful. He's 5, sorry. It's wonderful to see. But that path was really an incredibly hard one. And again, I don't want to take away from a much, much, much nonlinear path that is adopted by many other families, be the fact that I did have an outcome and never sat with me that the only reason that I had that child was I just had a little bit more money to go further. And that's what
Mhm.
all goes down to. It becomes a race on who has money to go further and who has obviously the mental and the emotional capacity to continue. So I was what you call a super user of the problem that we're trying to solve. And I was what you call, and I always say that the space, I go back to what I told you about the type of company that we want to build. Sometimes the best companies that you build are the companies that you'd wish that existed for you. Point firsthand, and you'd say, and it was too obvious for me as we were going through it. It's like, why there is not, like what, and it's the small things that add up. Why do I have to call a third party to organize my medication delivery on a timing that works for a third party postal service, and I'm in the middle of it coordinating a fridge? It just, why, just this piece of it? And imagine you have to do it 5 times over 3 years in 5 failed cycles, and then it
Right.
comes out, and at the end of the time you get a bill for $6,000 for the pleasure
Right.
of working with six
Let
people.
alone you're putting your life on hold because you're managing your schedules around the fertility schedule as well. You know, the calendar of when they say it's good to go, you're not. I mean, there's so many levels to it. And the reason I bring that up for you and your story is, yes, although you may have had financial means to go a little bit longer, I think it does resonate with people to say, oh, okay, he gets it, right? He's seen the emotional journey for him and his wife down this path. And I think that goes a long way with people that are deciding what to invest their time and money and who they want to bring into their family, so to speak, with, right?
Uh,
And I know it was important for me when I was going through anything in my life, if I could sit across the table from someone and be like, okay, they've been through a divorce or fertility or whatever, so that we could have a conversation and say, there's some level of degree that I understand that they understand what I've been through. And it doesn't take away from the emotional pain, no matter how much money you have, right? You still are waiting for those calls of, is it positive or negative, or what's happening through the journey. So that's why I really bring that up, is because to just drive home the fact that this whole company was founded based on the fact that there was a need there from your own experience.
Absolutely, and I think what we've over indexed on is exactly to your point. There is like a step before all of where Gaia comes into play, and we've always been very clear. I want us to be the first place you'd come if you're thinking about building a family. And at that point in time, it doesn't matter what products or services that we're offering today and how we fit into the financial wallet, so to speak. There is a place by which you need to start having this conversation, accessing the right information to make the right decisions, planning, tooling, scheduling, understanding all the variables. And today, that's just a wide space that you don't know where to go. So people end up, if you look at the subgroups and communities, if you look at Facebook, if you look at any of these community led forums, the amount of misinformation, the amount of bogus information, the amount of pseudoscience, because clearly it needs to fill a space. And if there is not a single commanding go to brand or service that's saying family journey starts here, where do you go in that journey? Like today, if you
Right.
want to lose weight, there are a lot of brands that come in. It's like, we're the weight loss authority. You come to Weight Watchers, you'll understand how do you lose weight. This is a diet for you. Here's the community. They control that space, right? And you'd imagine if people wanted to lose weight 20 years ago, they'd go all sort of places where nobody know any of that information is the right information. Is it? And then when it comes to fertility, which is very emotive, as much as weight loss or anything, but it's very emotive. And it touches your finances in a meaningful way. There isn't a brand that showed up and said, we're going to be the authority that whatever happens next in your family building, you're going to come here and we're
Hmm.
going to take care of you. And guess what? We've been where you are, so we understand you. And more, we're just going to be at an arm's length of giving you the best of the opinions that we can because we have no skin in the game because we want what you want. I want you to
Right.
walk away with a child.
Right. That's what I always say too. Your success is my success. So
Yeah,
the more that I can be alongside and holding your hand through that, we're in it together. And I know a lot of people, myself included, when you're in it, you feel like you are the only one in the world going through it. Even though you may know statistically the numbers or whatnot, it feels so heavy. But to know that there is somebody who is on the other line or whatever that does really sincerely feel like they're on the path and your success is their success, and to know, as I call it, the fertility team, who's on your fertility team, and anyone who's not, put them on the bench during your time of trying to conceive, because we need the A team really stepping up on this. So how can people find out more and really get involved to have Gaia help on their journey?
absolutely. I think the best way, find us, we're growing our socials presence. GaiaFamily.com is where hopefully many of their journeys will start. Find us on any of our social channels. We are a small, nimble team that is trying to build a little bit more personally closer to people. And I think the best thing that we do is we continue to ruthlessly focus on the people that we serve, and that allow us to build better experiences, build better products, better services. So, and it's fairly easy to get in touch with us. It's fairly easy to understand where we are, and some of them can also find us through the partner clinics. One of our first launches, the one that you've arrived, is we've launched with Pinnacle, who's one of the best clinics in the country with a great footprint that we're rolling one state after the other. So find us through the clinic, find us directly, find us on any of our social channels, and you'll sure get the attention that you'd want because I want people to understand that we are ruthlessly building for them.
Again, you've used the word ruthlessly, which I love because it shows that the ultimate kind of assertive aggression, so to speak, of the mission behind you and how really dedicated you are to this. And I would just recommend to pick up the phone to speak to somebody on their team. They're all amazing that I met in New York, and they really are all in it for you and to grow this and really make this a revolutionary experience for people that are going through fertility. This is just the ground up, and if you need to, ask to speak to one of their families that's gone through it so that you can get it from them. I'm sure there's families out there that are open to sharing their story as well, because I think oftentimes that helps also to speak to somebody that says, here's little Johnny or Susie that, Gaia helped us get to. And don't think that you are not the one that it can happen to too. Because I feel like also people who are listening are often saying, okay, well, that's okay for Elizabeth, but that won't ever happen for me. And I think this Gaia family is here to change that it can happen for you. And you just need to take that first step of educating yourself about Gaia family and how they can support you on this journey.
Thank you so much. When I met you the first time in June, I don't know if you remember when I got on stage and said, we're delivering a child every 6 days.
Yes.
It is October and we're now delivering a child every 3 days.
Amazing.
And we want to be a place where there is a million unborn child in this country due to cost and due to the fact that it's priced as a luxury good. And any role we play in creating those many lives that today go that they go missing is just a great privilege and a source of pride for me and for the rest of the team. And any role we play along that road could be a long way.
That is so awesome. Thank you for sharing that. And let that next baby born with Gaia be one of your babies, because there is nothing more amazing than that. And the fact that we live in a world that this is even possible to do ART and to have companies like this and technologies that are popping up in order to help you get to the finish line of what it is that you're trying to go after is awesome. So take advantage of it while you can, and find out more about Gaia Family. Thank you so much, Nader, for being here today and sharing all this information, and everybody to find them on social medias. They're very active, like you said, and I can't wait to hear about all the more millions of babies that come from Gaia
Right.
Family. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Friends with Fertility. We hope that you found the stories, insights, and tips as inspiring and informative as we did. Remember, you are not alone on this journey. Your friends with fertility are here for you. If you've enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe, rate, and leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. And don't forget to follow us on social media for updates and more fertility resources. Until next time, stay hopeful and keep believing in your journey, and know that we are sending you lots of love.